Hi. Well, you know what it means when you hear that music? You see this puppy. You see some old guy masturbating right in the middle of it all. You know what it's time? It's time for another hard-hitting, gat-firing, gal-loving episode of Puppy Noir. The only hard-hitting, crime-riddled, urban night melodrama with a puppy. I'm going to stop the music right there because one of the reasons we don't do the Puppy Noir anymore is because every time I do, somebody, some company that owns the rights to that song seems to put something on my website that doesn't allow me to make money from these shows, which I don't make any money anyway, so I can't be too worried. There's Lucky the Wonder Dog. She's not her normal crazy self because I just took her to the park and she's really tired. So I think she'll get down and maybe not make as big a fuss as usual. Good dog luck. And we're going to do another Puppy Noir episode because I've been reading this week one of those writers who I go back to over and over again over the years, and that's Joseph Hansen. Isn't that a cool cover? I'm telling you, trade paperbacks, mass market paperbacks are the only way to read good books. It's the old Owl paperbacks from the early 80s, I guess. And Joseph Hansen, he wrote a series of detective novels about the first series detective novels that I know of about a gay detective. The only one, actually, I know of, but I don't know much about detective fiction. And these came out in the 80s through the 90s, and I believe he wrote them up till the beginning of the 2000s. I can't remember. And he's dead now. Joseph Hansen died a few years ago, and the books are still very much alive. And I read one of these books every year or two. And one of the things I've been doing as I get older is because I reread some of these books. I didn't know I read them or not. One of the reasons I'm becoming kind of systematic. So I started reading some of these series from the beginning so I don't miss any of them. And last year I read the first in this series, which I believe is Fade Out. Those are cool covers. If anyone knows the artist of these old Owl paperbacks, I really want to give them a credit. I love the way their books looked. And this one, kind of a Hockney. You got a kind of Hockney-esque. It's kind of Hockney meets L.A. Noir feel about them with the orchids. A little like those great Chandler paperbacks we love. And he wrote about, I want to say a dozen. I've got most of them here. Dave Brandstetter. I think it means Brandstetter at one point in this book. I think it's a Dutch name. I think it means it means Brand's daughter, which is a little joke that Dave Brandstetter seems to think is a joke because he's gay and so he thinks it's kind of a funny name. But they're very interesting books, really well written. One of the things I'm always interested about in the Dave Brandstetter books is two things. One, they're almost kind of perfect prose writer. You can't really pick a paragraph out of a Joseph Hansen novel that isn't kind of perfect. And he writes these beautiful, hard, short, sculpted little sentences that and descriptions of rooms, particularly the way people dress, and areas, neighborhoods of LA. And he does everything just like technically with just a snap. Every single sentence is a lovely little sentence. So I really, just as far as good writing, I like the Dave Brandstetter books. They're also kind of, they're the old-fashioned detective quality story that you get about, especially in L.A. Noir, from Chandler and Ross MacDonald and all the greats like them. He does a great job of using the kind of detective format to go around and investigate the lives of all these different people who look disconnected from one another. But as usually happens, they're all sort of deeply connected in various ways. This one is like almost every one that I've ever read. Starts off, Dave Brandstetter is an insurance investigator. And so whenever a death looks kind of unusual, then Dave goes out and looks into it. And he always finds some dastardly deed has been committed. And David Brandstetter is an openly gay man in the period that he's writing these books. Again, I think they're actually written as early as the 70s. This one, I believe, is the second in the series, Death Claims. This was first published in 1973, and I was reading them in the 80s when they came out in these nice paperback editions. So he's sort of an openly gay man who is going through these landscapes and these kind of these relationship webs of people, men and women and their children, in which there are almost always some sort of secret gay lives operating. So there's often people who are having gay relationships, or husbands who are having gay relationships, or various things that only Dave kind of catches on to quite quickly. Now that's not my favorite. That's my least interesting part of the books, in the sense that they almost always have some connection to some sort of gay life that has been kind of hidden away in these little relationship paradigms, and Dave kind of is the man to kind of go through them and see them all. It's really just the quality of the relationships, the way he describes individuals, the way he kind of goes into everything from kind of a cheap private theatrical company to some guy who plays cowboys on TV, I think, or some TV actor who lives with his mother, who's actually another gay man who's not afraid to let people know what he's doing and what his life is like. And Dave goes around, he kind of unravels all these relationships, and they're kind of textbook mysteries in that way, in the sense that you kind of go from all these different places and you learn a little bit more about the lives all the way through the story. The other thing that's interesting, the unusual part I think about the Brandstetter books, is that in each of the books, as I recall, and this is why they're kind of good to read in order, is they kind of trace the life of this guy, Dave Brandstetter, who's a very melancholy character. So he's not smart-ass and cocky like Marlowe or Lou Archer. He's a bit of a melancholy character whose relationships are usually falling apart. And in the very first book, as I recall, his partner had died of cancer just before. This is pre-AIDS, by the way, these books. I mean, the early books. So this is just a man he'd lived with for years who died of cancer. And Dave spends the succeeding books trying to really kind of get his life back together and his home. Hansen writes really well about Hollywood, which is where Dave lives. And he describes the homes really well. He describes the way the cities look in the course of the time. And the other thing that Hansen does that I really love is he kind of creates alternate versions of L.A. So there's a place in there called El Molino, I think. And he creates these little towns, something Blanca, White Sands, little beach communities. And they're not real, but they're kind of based on places like El Toro or Huntington Beach or so forth. But he does his own little kind of riff on them, and he changes the landscape a bit. But you can kind of sort of recognize the real L.A. coming through. He really writes well about the city. And I'm again, I don't really go back to look at the lives of these writers, but I'm pretty sure Hansen was either born in L.A. or he spent most of his life there. I want to just read a couple of passages to give you an idea. I don't think anyone writes more beautiful paragraphs than Joseph Hansen. And this is one I'm going to pick up by, trying to remember the context of it was, I don't remember the context of it, though. It's a really good passage. Here's Dave. Okay, I remember this. Dave is trying to find out. He finds out the guy who died, the man on the front cover, who's like a kind of athletic, very strong, muscular, swimming person who late in life has a terrible accident and he becomes a drug addict. And Dave goes to a drugstore to see a friend of this man, and just the description of a kind of a anonymous Rexall type drugstore and the people in it is wonderfully done. And just listen to the sentences. The shopping center was a cry of light against the hulking darkness of the hills. Its signs were crisply lettered sheets of milky plastic. Its shop fronts naked glass. The interiors ice-white fluorescent. Brave but lonely. Safeway, laundromat, Kentucky Fried Chicken, liquor, Newberries, hairdresser, drugs. 3 cars waited on space enough for 30. Dave left his pointed at the drugstore and pushed inside. We're outside of this place. The silence was large, but a typewriter was snipping little holes in it. Slowly. At the rear, Dave went there between hedges of toothpaste, deodorants, laxatives. The counter was chin-high and topped by old-fashioned glass urns filled with dried herbs for cuteness, not use. The urns were labeled in Spencerian script. The sign overhead was Spencerian too, gold on a white oval. Prescriptions. A boy looked at him between the urns. His tightly curled black hair was parted in the middle and combed over his ears. His brown eyes dreamed, and his mouth was a dark rose. He could have posed for a Rossetti drawing. He could have been Rossetti, young, before the bloat set in. "McPhail?" Dave said. "McSucceed," the boy said. It's a joke. "At least till now. What's wrong? Does something have to be wrong?" "You didn't say Mr. McPhail. You didn't say J. McPhail. You said McPhail. For some reason that sounds official, and you look official. Did I mess up on a prescription?" So immediately, again, I think almost every page of every Hansen book I've ever read is that quick to set up beautiful sentences, nice, clear, descriptive moments, introduces the character, and bang, you're in a conversation. I've used him in classes, and I can't think of a better writer just to teach the techniques of writing, but he had a real artistry he had a real beautiful touch with sentences, and told a good story too. Dave is a little bit like Lou Archer. He doesn't really do much fighting or beating up, but I think at this book, at the very end, he actually punches a guy and takes his gun in like 2 sentences. And that's all the action. The rest of the book is about talking to people, finding about their histories, finding about their lives, finding about the things that went wrong with their lives. And it's done beautifully. And I really, I find when you start one of these books, it's really hard to put them down. It's kind of the perfect bathtub book. So anyway, I'm going to do more of Joseph Hansen because I'm kind of trying to read through them all. But the first 2, if you want to do what I'm doing, which is read the first 2, Fade Out was good, but I think Death Claims is easily one of the best of the books I've read. I really loved this one particularly. I thought this was especially a good one. Okay. I'm not going to bring Lucky in. She's too tired from her long walk. And I'm not going to play the music anymore because I'll get in trouble. But happy noir hunting. Try to stay out of the urban night. Don't catch coronavirus. And we'll talk to you soon. Happy bathing.